There are very few things that politicians agree upon today, but one of them is that we desperately need more economic growth. In the UK, for instance, public services backlogged and broken, worklessness rising, average real wages haven't really risen for the last 16 years, their worst stretch since the Napoleonic War. But if only the problem were as simple as that, because growth is not only associated with almost all the great triumphs and achievements of our societies, but it's also associated with many of the greatest challenges that we face as well. Typically it's associated with climate change, the idea that we're growing towards an ecological catastrophe. But the argument of the book is that actually it's also associated with many other challenges as well. Yeah. Growing inequality, the destruction of local places and communities, encouraging us to chase after technologies like AI that have disruptive effects on work and politics. Yes. It's not clear we can control. And so we face this dilemma, this feeling of being pulled in two opposite directions at the same time.
I mentioned to you off camera that I have spoken to two of the people who are concerned about the growth model, and that is David Attenborough. I've seen it, I think it was at COP21 in Paris, and Greta Thunberg I've seen at the World Economic Forum and had a very long conversation with her as well. Why are they wrong about the dangers of the growth model, or are they right?
Yeah. I mean, so what they get right is that we cannot continue as we have in the past. But what I think they get wrong is the idea that the way of resolving this challenge is to press pause on growth, or even to actively go into reverse to try and shrink our economies. I mean, I argue in the book, I think this would be, if we were to do that, it would be one of the greatest acts of self-harm that humankind could inflict upon itself. It would be a complete tragedy. And so the book is all about, well, how do we...
Human harm, but planetary gain, or not?
Well, I mean, the argument of the book is that you don't have to choose, that what we ought to be doing is not saying more or less growth, but how do we get a different type of growth? Yes. How do we change the type of growth that we pursue? How can we be sort of ambitious and bold? And again, not just with respect to the damage that growth does to the climate, but also how do we get the growth that doesn't lead to widening inequalities in society, that doesn't destroy particular places and local communities and industries which are important sources of meaning and purpose.
So Daniel, on that note, is President Trump embracing that kind of strategy? I mean, it's very different to the Biden administration. Yeah. He's taking control of the reins and he's promising to bring back industry to home, yes, using technology to do so, and putting in key appointees that are looking at the portfolio in a very different way. And of course, Robert F. Kennedy is one example, even in the health space. What sort of pollutants are we putting out into the environment? Yeah. Very different approach. Is this an element of what you're talking about, a completely different end of the spectrum?
Yeah, no, it very much is. The sense that there is a tension between pursuing a particular type of growth and a particular sort of growth through globalization, and then wanting to protect particular industries and particular places, not only because work's an important source of income, but also meaning and purpose and direction and structure and community. And one of the arguments of the book is that's a sort of a tension between growth and something else that we might care about that we've perhaps ignored for too long.